I want people to say you're doing elite. What does that mean? Oh, funny you should ask. Here you go. And then boom, you rattle off 15 minutes of talk. Then they're more confused than they were when they asked you how you're doing.
That was PJ Fleck, and this is On the Bench with Mike Hall. That's me. PJ Fleck is the head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. He's one of the younger head coaches in the country, but has already lived one of the more fascinating lives. He was born Philip John Fleck, you can call him PJ, and grew up in the far western suburbs of Chicago, not far from yours truly. As a high schooler, he had a good amount of athletic success, but his small stature made scholarship offers rare, certainly at least at the big boy schools. So he went to Northern Illinois to play wide receiver, and he did, and he played pretty well, to the point where after graduation, he signed on as an undrafted free agent in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers, where for 2 seasons, he was mostly on the practice squad or an injured reserve. So he decided to start a coaching career. He began as an assistant under Jim Tressel at Ohio State. Took a few more jobs in college and the NFL before becoming the head coach at Western Michigan for the 2013 season. They went 1-11 his first year. Not great, Bob. But by his 4th year, they went 12-0. Were ranked in the top 15 nationally and played in the Cotton Bowl. He took Western Michigan to the Cotton Bowl. This led to PJ taking the Minnesota job for the 2017 season. And by his 3rd year in Minneapolis, he guided them to a 10-win season and won the Big Ten Coach of the Year honor. His coaching success is coupled with his well-known enthusiasm, which comes from many places, but includes painful loss. A few years back, he lost a son shortly after birth due to a heart condition. This led to the creation of his life and program mantra of row the boat, which helps guide him to enjoy the moment while striving for greatness. I'm excited to have him because he's high energy, fun, young, successful. He's making people take notice of him and the Gophers and the Big Ten. Now, I told you earlier he was a pretty good athlete. Well, he really was. In fact, I started off our chat by asking him to give me the scouting report on PJ Fleck, the high school basketball player.
Short, and shorter. That was probably my scouting report. I was a hustle guy, right? So I think I averaged like 24.5 a game.
Points?
But, I think that's a record over there at Kalen High School. You need to check on that, Mike Hall. I was one of those guys that would see how many times I could turn the offensive guy before half court, how many times I could turn him. I was one of those guys that slapped the ground. I was a defender. Most of my points came off steals and layups. I could shoot the outside jumper, but once I got down with the trees, man, that was not my cup of tea. But yeah, I mean, our basketball team went to the sectional finals, and you know, I was a 3-time basketball all-stater.
Man, you had game. I mean,
when you have to do something when you're 5'10", you got to shoot.
Well, I was going to say, when you started with short, I was thinking, okay, so you played center. Got it, but you clearly weren't good. But no, 24 a game. That's a real. I mean, did you get any offers, D2, anything like that?
I did. I mean, there was a lot of people looking at me more in basketball than they were at me in football. I mean, I looked more like a point guard for a college basketball team than I ever did as an NFL or a college wide receiver. So I think there was one point that I was going to walk on at the University of Wisconsin, which is fitting enough. When they first initially built the Kohl Center, went to a game there, got recruited, very little, but it was going to be possibly in the decision-making of walk on at University of Wisconsin.
So wait, so that would have been Bo Ryan recruiting you, maybe?
That would have been Bo Ryan, and I highly doubt Bo Ryan even knew who I was. I was probably just one of the assistants, like, yeah, just in case the whole bottom falls through, this guy would be the case. This guy would be the one.
Man, do you ever think – I mean, listen, you made it to the NFL, so it's not like you made a bad choice, but do you ever think?
No, I don't ever think what would have happened to me if I would have played college basketball. No way, because it would have been – I probably wouldn't have played college basketball. I definitely wouldn't have played in the NBA, and who knows where I'd be today. So I never wonder what happened if, because I think I found my calling.
I think you did okay. All right, let me get another scouting report. PJ Fleck, the baseball player.
Underappreciated. I was a little bit more of the grunt. Baseball was my best sport. If you ask me, humbly, I was cut from our 9th grade baseball team because we never had a baseball team at Canelan High School. And then my freshman year, we brought one. We had one. It was only varsity. And so we all tried out. And the guy by the name of Steve Oxtetter, who is my wide receiver coach, he was my social studies teacher. He was the baseball coach as well. And he cut all the freshmen. Even though like guys like Sean Wentz, myself, he knew we were probably the best baseball players trying out. He decided not to keep any freshmen. Now, if you're wondering about one sport that I sometimes think about what would have been, it would have been baseball, because I think that was my best sport. I still have a love for it to this day. Love baseball. Josh Donaldson for the Twins actually lives across the street from me. We're neighbors. And so, I mean, it's baseball. One of my sons plays baseball, and I have a major passion for baseball, the American pastime. And that would be one that I would say, what if I didn't get cut? Now, Michael Jordan got cut from his, 8th grade basketball team, and he's Michael Jordan. I'm not saying that I would have been the Michael Jordan of baseball, but I think we could have went pretty far in baseball because I had such a passion for it growing up.
Give me the scouting report. Were you more stick? Were you more glove? Were you power hitting? What was your?
Oh, no, definitely not power hitting, but I had a lot of natural pop off the bat. I was a hustler. I was an infielder, so I could catch. I could play shortstop. I had the arm to play third base. I could play second. I could play center. I had great hand-eye coordination, and I could steal. I could do those types of things. But I think that would probably be the scouting report. A hustler. I was one of those hustle guys.
So did you get offers to play baseball in college?
I didn't, because I never played. Once I got cut, and then I decided to run track. And once I made the commitment to Ralph Drendel at Canelan High School, who was a wonderful influence of mine, I felt once I made that commitment, I couldn't go back on my word. And so even though I was asked to come back out the next year of baseball, I decided just to stick with track and stick with my teammates that way and kind of do it that way.
So Josh Donaldson's your neighbor?
My neighbor, and he went to Auburn, which is ironic enough that we beat Auburn in the Outback Bowl. So he's got to row the boat flag in the mailbox.
So you were living there, and then he moved in, or vice versa?
No, we were living there for the same time, as much time we've been at Minnesota. And he just moved here this offseason. The Twins just acquired him this offseason and moved in, and my wife's got to know his girlfriend, who's now pregnant, and Josh. I've met him once. I mean. But the thing is, when you drive by his house, we have a great neighborhood, very, very friendly, almost too friendly at times. And the poor guy's out there just trying to get some yard work done, and everybody knows who he is, and everybody stops by, and and probably bugs him. So I got a chance to go over there and meet him the other day, but didn't spend long with him. But he seems like a great guy and a great asset to the Twins.
That's pretty cool. Well, baseball and basketball aside, and by the way, I think a decent hockey player too, right, PJ? You could handle a puck a little bit.
I don't think you've seen my skating with the Minnesota hockey team. I don't think you've seen that. If you think I'm any good at hockey, I never skated one time until I became the head coach at Western Michigan University, where then I practiced with the hockey team, just like I practiced with the hockey team here at Minnesota. Because when you're in Minnesota and you're in Michigan, you better love hockey.
Right.
And I do love hockey. I just never played it growing up. But no, I played goalie for a reason, so they could shoot the pucks at me instead of me shooting the pucks, because that's way too athletic.
You were okay at wide receiver, though. Becoming a pro and everything was all right. But I want to ask you about something that I never played at a high level. Shocking with this body. But one of the things that always I thought was just insane was punt returners. And you returned punts, if I'm not mistaken, a good amount, right?
I did, yeah. That was kind of my jam.
Okay, so is that not the most terrifying thing in the sport? Because to be good at it, you have to keep your eyes up and see if it's moving left or right, ahead of you, behind you. But to not get clocked, you have to have your eyes down to some degree. Like, that seems like an unbelievable task.
It's unique, that's for sure. It's one of those things when you stand back there before you catch a punt, there's this this calmness that has to come over you and this confidence that has to come over you, and the nerves have to go away because, all 11 guys are coming down to just rip your face off. And you're going to look up the 4.2 seconds out of the 4.3. You're going to be looking up until you catch it, and you never know what it's going to look like. It's one of those things that the picture always changes. People are constantly in front of you in different positions, and there's no time you put your head down where it's all look the same. It's about making the first guy miss, go get a first down, and then get a touchdown. But I think Joe Novak put me back there my true freshman year at Northern Illinois because I could catch the ball. And that was one thing I could always do. I was reliable. I might not have been the fastest, biggest, strongest, but I would catch the ball no matter where it was. Over the middle, deep, short routes, punts, kickoffs. I could catch, and I was reliable. And at the time, Northern Illinois wasn't very good. I got recruited to a 26-game losing streak. Part of the reason why, how did you get an offer? I mean, we're in a 26-game losing streak. There weren't many people that were picking Northern Illinois to go to school there. And that's how guys like me got a scholarship. And Joe Novak decided to build around Illinois kids, and he trusted me to put me back there. And I was back then, whatever coach asked, you did, period. Never questioned it, never asked why, just did it. And you knew if you put you back there, he believed in you. And so, my whole career, I really, at least playing, owe it to Joe Novak because of the confidence he showed me at a very, very young age, even though I was 5'9", 150 pounds out of high school and starting as a true freshman at 150 pounds.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Illinois, and that's where you were from. Sugar Grove is where things started for you. Does that make you a Bears fan as a kid?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up through and through Chicago sports. Now, my family's from the Southwest side near Berwyn and Cicero originally, so you would think I'm a South Side or Sox fan, but I was one of the only people in my family that loved the Cubs from day one, and loved the North Side. So Cubs and the Bears and the Blackhawks. My dad, we'd go to games at times together whenever we could afford it. And it was really special times, and still go to the sporting events in Chicago at least once or twice a year with my wife, Heather, and kids. And we make it events to go back to Chicago because we're all fans of them. As a fellow Illinois native,
we're almost the same age. I still can't wrap my brain around they only won one Super Bowl. With that defense, with Walter Payton, I don't know how it was possible. They only won one.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I still remember the days of when they were rebuilding Soldier Field, and they were going to take that spaceship and plug it right into Soldier Field of all the people who were boycotting and rebelling against the stadium and being redone and rebuilt. So it's hard to imagine, but at least they got one. So that's a good thing. There's still a one up there, which is good, better than zero.
So I feel like when you're a head coach, it's obviously different than being an assistant because there's so much more scrutiny and interviews. But you just mentioned, you're a lifelong Bears fan, a lifelong Cubs fan. You go to Western Michigan, I don't think they want to see you rooting for the Bears or the Cubs. They're interested in the Tigers and the Lions. Now that you're in Minnesota, they care a lot more about the Vikings and the Twins. So, that's got to be – you didn't 100% drop those teams, but you certainly became a fan of the Twins and the Timberwolves and everything, right? That seems like a weird adjustment to me.
Oh, absolutely. If you cut me open, you're going to see, Cubby blue, and you're going to see Bears blue and orange, and you're going to see the Blackhawks logo come spitting out. But when you're the head football coach in a certain city, you adapt like a chameleon very quickly. I still remember it did not go well at Western Michigan. We're thinking about creating all these traditions at Western Michigan, make it fun for the players, have touchdown songs. And I remember I introduced at Western Michigan Chelsea Dagger. The song Chelsea Dagger, when the Blackhawks actually score a goal, and I'm not smart enough to think of this at the time, they played Chelsea Dagger, and I'm like, this is perfect. We're going to score a touchdown, there's going to be the fight song, and then we're going to kick the field goal, and then boom, Chelsea Dagger, or vice versa. Well, I wasn't smart enough when I introduced it to think that the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings are rivals. That did not go over well in the state of Michigan with the new head football coach. I got more emails about how big of a schmuck I was, not because of football coaching, but because of my choice of song, because I love the Blackhawks. And I never mentioned it after that. After that day, I would never mention what I like, who I like, where I'm from. It was all about, boom, Detroit Tigers, Detroit Red Wings, Detroit Lions, right? And those are all rivals of the Bears. And now I'm here in Minnesota, which, again, you got the Wild, who I love. Jason Zucker, become a good friend. The Vikings, Kyle Rudolph, become a really good friend. right? And you look at the Twins, Rocco and now Donaldson. I mean, I'm all in, but I'll never mention the Cubs or anything that they do or the Blackhawks ever again here. And I made that mistake too many times.
Okay, so
One too many times.
If in a year it's Cubs Twins in the World Series, you will be wearing the big M on your hat, but you won't be sad if the Twins lose.
Oh, I know this. Whoever wins the World Series, I'll be fired up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing about it, right? You won't be able to tell how I'm feeling inside because I'll be so excited on the outside. People have no idea.
What was a bigger joy for you as a Chicago fan? Any of those 3 Hawks championships or the Cubs 2016?
Oh, Cubs by far. Just because of the curse and what's gone on and everything that's happened. You know, the Cubs for sure. And I'm a huge baseball fan at heart, and to watch the Cubs do that and how you know their manager Madden did a tremendous job of building that team, and Epstein and all the guys that were a part of that. Yeah. You know, just watching their approach, and I was a head coach at the time and a young head coach, which I'm getting older as we go. But you take a lot of those lessons as you're building Western Michigan when they say they can't do it there, or, hey, we're never going to do it again at Minnesota. You're taking a lot of those lessons that the Cubs did and reading a lot of information of how they did it and then doing everything you can to apply it to your organization.
You're talking to a White Sox fan here, but even I in 2016 was living not far away from Wrigleyville. And when that thing was happening, we would like open up our doors and our windows in October because you could just hear Wrigley Field from, you know, a mile away. I mean, it was that was one of those cool, like, you could hate the Cubs, which I never did. I always thought you can like both from Chicago, but like you could have hated the Cubs. And unless you were an Indians fan, you were I'm okay with what's happening, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same way. You know, I see that in Chicago. I mean, they want championships in the city no matter what. And of course, there's the crosstown rivalry between the Cubs and the Sox. But when it's all said and done, you know, even when the Sox had a huge run, you know, a whole decade ago or before, I mean, there were a lot of Cubs fans in those stands that switched their allegiance pretty quickly too, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned that switching team allegiances was something you learned quickly. What would you say was the biggest adjustment when you moved to Minneapolis from Western Michigan?
Well, I think that, you know, the job is the job. I think that no matter where you go, you know, we coach football, we have a culture, we have a program, how you develop that, how you organize that, what the details look like, how you schedule that, and how you create something. I think no matter where you go, that's it. But I think when you're in a university that's really attached to a city as well, major metropolitan area that has a lot of things going on, a lot of professional sports, a lot of professionals in a lot of area, whether that's arts and theater, whether that's, you know, when you're talking about professional sports teams, whether you're talking about other things, businesses, 18 Fortune 500 companies. And a lot of times, you know, I've been in really small college towns at times to be able to coach. And when you get in a big metro area, it's very unique and different. But also it's a really big positive when it's all said and done because of the amount of resources your players, your coaches, your families have access to. It's a wonderful place to live. I think the hardest part, though, was not only encompassing the university pulse, but getting the whole city pulse as well, because there's the university pulse and then there's a city pulse. And then within all of that, there's a combined pulse. And you've got to be able to have that, where your fan base is, what they like. What are their tendencies? What do they dream of having? And same thing with the players of how we're going to be able to recruit and bring players here that have never come to Minnesota or who have never been recruited by Minnesota. And how are we going to bring those championships back? So, and sell that message to everyone else. I think that was one of the biggest challenges because you weren't in just some small college town anymore. You were in this major metro area.
It strikes me as like, when you're young and you go from high school to college, like your high school is this big and then college is this big. Like you went from a non-major program in a smaller town to a huge historic program in a major town.
Absolutely. And that's the key to it, right? Is it's the bigness of it. The job's the same, but within the job working, how do you connect all of that? And you're connecting a bigger force, right? Which means you're connecting a lot more critics, doubters, people who fear, people who believe, people who love, people who've been hurt, people who bled maroon and gold. And you're getting this whole pulse of how this city works. Not only that, how does the media work? What's the media's pulse on the Gophers? And everything you're doing, you're countering the critics, right? but you're also promoting the positives. And there's a great balance to that as you keep moving forward.
So in getting ready for this, PJ, I went on YouTube and rewatched the interview that you and I did the day you were hired. Right after your press conference, you walked off. There was a little stage setup for you and I, and we did like a 7-minute chat. A couple things I noticed. One, right away, I noticed very quickly back then, had a few less LBs on me back then, PJ. And I noticed you had a little more salad up top here back then.
We sure did, man. Yep.
that was a change, but you still have stuff. You just chose to get rid of it, it looks like.
Oh, no, I still have it. It's just, my wife, Heather, at one point, we're in Disney World of the first summer coming to Minnesota. And she's like, I think you should shave your head. And when you're standing in line to like ride the small world and your wife looks at you and says, I think you should shave your head. You're like, wait a second. First of all, we're in the happiest place on earth. All right. So let's not make me mad. And second of all, why are you telling me that? Oh, you're behind me and it's raining. And she sees like this patch back here. She goes, listen, you can do what you want, but I want you to do it before you have to do it. Don't be one of those guys who constantly keep the 2 strands of hair and comb them over, make them really thick, spray it on, just let it go. She goes, I'm going to think you're beautiful, sexy, handsome, no matter what, if you shave your head. So I'm like, well, if I have to shave my head, my boys are doing it too. And so I shaved both of my sons' hair, and I shaved mine that day and never went back. Now, they went back to having hair because they're like, Dad, I hate that. I don't want to be bald so young, and I'm not doing that. Bald's for you. So I just kept it. And from that day on, I mean, I still have hair, but it's, I'm sure over the days and months and seasons has gone by, I probably lost more and more, but you can't tell. And I think that's the great thing. It looks like I just did it to be a bald man.
Right. Yeah. But Disney was the reason why.
The happiest place on earth. You got it. Yep.
One of the other things we talked about in that interview was you told me that you had a journal you've kept for a long time, and you would write one thing you learned from that day. Do you still do that?
I do.
Yeah. How many years have we has that, like, when did that start?
That started around 2011 when I was working for Greg Schiano. Greg Schiano was a real big journaler, and he taught me a lot. He was the most detailed, organized coach I've ever been around, most demanding coach I've ever been around, and a guy who could be able to do, most times as human beings, like we do something and then like 2 weeks later we're tired of doing it, so we stop. But the self-discipline he had to be the same person from day in, day out, and to do the same things over and over and over, no matter how many times he's done them, inspired me to be able to do that. And there's many conversations I had with Greg as a young assistant coach that I felt like I needed to do that. I still do it to this day. I still write all 4 of my children letters every morning before I leave for work, and my wife. So just in case, you just never know. And that way they'll always have something if I never make it home. So it's just it's something that I've done to be able to bring some type of peace in a very, very stressful world and a stressful environment. Something that's made me have a little bit of peace is to be able to write.
Yeah. Wow. I never knew that about the kids. So every day before you leave, you'll write them a note to sort of tell them that you love them or something about what you want them to do that day or something?
It's unique. Sometimes I write them a letter. It's always on these cards. And Schiano taught me about these cards too. We call them Todd cards for Todd Grenadier. He used to work at Rutgers. But these are called Todd cards. And I got this from Greg too. But now it's obviously a Minnesota thing. And I'm sure he has them back at Rutgers now. But so I write him a note on one of these every single morning. And sometimes I draw pictures of what describes them. Sometimes it's just it's a puzzle that I have to put together. And sometimes it's just a note. Same thing with Heather. So yeah. It's unique. They look forward to it. I hope nobody ever takes it for granted. And sometimes I got to remind them, hey, did you get your note today? Yeah. Oh yeah, Dad. I mean, I get one every day, but Heather's kept every note that I've written her for years, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's really sweet, man. You brought
it's one of those. Oh, isn't he just so nice? Yeah. Ask Heather. Yeah. I'm sure Heather's got some other stories.
You're talking to a dad of 2, and I don't think I've ever written my children a letter. So I'm feeling pretty guilty right now. I'm gonna get working on that. You mentioned Schiano. You have a long-going relationship with him. he's in your league now. Like, did he talk to you before he signed up at all? Were you blindsided by the news?
No, I'm not blindsided at all. I mean, I didn't know he was going to sign, nor did he say, I'm going to go to Rutgers. But you could just tell Greg was going to get back into it at some point. It was just too perfect of a story. It was set up too perfectly for Greg not to go back there and rebuild it again. And, Greg's just been such a huge influence in my life. And, I've for the last however many years, 8 years, I've called Greg for a lot of different things I've gone on in my career, I've worked for him for 4 years, and now as a head coach for going on 8 years, I've talked to him. And now when I call him, he doesn't give me the advice he used to give. He's not as open as he usually has been. We've even had a few recruiting battles, and I'm like, wait a second, you can't say that about me. And it's been one of those things that it's like, oh, wait, yeah, we are competing against each other now, aren't we? So I've had to get used to that a little bit, because he was one of the guys I would always call when I needed something. And now it's like, wait a minute. Do I give him that information? Do I not give him that information? Do I tell him that? Do I really want to go down that road? So it's unique for sure, but he's been a huge influence in my life.
Well, see, that's the newest thing he taught you, is that, hey, I love you, brother, but I'm going to beat you for that running back. He's coming.
Oh, yeah. And Greg's so good, too. Greg's so good at, Greg will make me feel like, I'm still an assistant for him, and you can tell me anything, Peach. Come on, give me it. I'm not going to say anything. Come on. Then a day later, I hear a recruit tell me that. I'm like, wait a second. I'm kidding, by the way, but I could see that happening. And right. So he's, but again, one of the most influential men I've ever had in my life. And I've said it very publicly for a lot of years, no matter if Greg beats me by 60 or not. I went to Greg as a boy, and I really did. A boy in the profession. And I left a man, and I left ready to be a head coach. We're very different people, but he taught me a lot. And if I didn't work for him, I wouldn't be the head coach I am today.
If you had to pick one person in your life who taught you the motivational style that you have as a head coach, who would that be?
That's a great question. That's a really hard question, because I never really had many people like me. I would say that I thought Greg was really good at being able to get people to do things that they probably didn't think they could do. Every coach I've been around, Mike Nolan, Jim Tressel, going back to my, Joe Novak, and going back to my high school coach, Joe Thorgerson. Every program I've ever been around had really, really troubled times, really hard times when I first got there. And when we left, we turned it around. And you watched a bunch of common people do extraordinary things. And it was the belief that these people had in each other, the belief they had in their culture, the belief they had in their vision, and the way to never compromise that and never put one person above, including themselves, above the culture and the way of life, and never compromising that. So I think that I learned that from everyone I worked for, even Dennis Erickson, bringing in a guy like me, Terry Donnie, who was the GM at the time, and who's passed, and people who just have always taken a chance on me. I remember my mom, was a special education assistant. My dad would work for AT&T and then Terminix, and we have no coaching background. It's just education. And they taught me at a young age, get yourself around the people you want to be like. And that's all I did. And then you throw your own personality in there and watch other people of how you'd be able to run your own program when you got there. And, I'm an overachiever. I consider myself that. Everybody I hire is an overachiever. Everybody that I recruit, I want to be an overachiever, because when you're at Minnesota and you have 5 4-star recruits, you're still going to be able to be expected to beat the Penn States with 54 4-stars, or Auburn with 56 4-stars. And you got to find unique ways of doing that. You got to get the most out of the people that you have, academically, athletically, socially, and spiritually. So you've got to bring the most out of them. Now, I don't believe in I have to motivate my people to do well. If I have to motivate you every day, then I got the wrong person. I don't have the right person who comes to work or comes to playing with the right attitude to change their best, to get better. I've recruited or hired the wrong people. But I am here to be able to positively and energetically drive the culture. And that inspires people along the way, because they know that their work is paying off and they know their work is appreciated. So I've learned a lot over the years about that. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had.
You mentioned being a teacher, and I'm sure fans of yours know this by now, but those who aren't might not know that you were a sixth grade social studies teacher. And you've said in the past that like, that's sort of what you are. And then you've become this head coach. Like, has the change happened in your mind where you don't think of yourself anymore as the sixth grade social studies teacher, that you think of yourself as a head coach now, as a football coach?
Well, I think they're one. I think coaching's teaching, and 95% of a head coach's job these days really doesn't have to do a lot with the X's and O's. We want it to be, and we are way involved in that, deeply involved in that. But there's so much in 2020 administratively and educationally that you are doing for your football team, not only on the field, but off the field. Especially look what's going on in our country right now, the social injustice and the education that we're providing our student athletes and will continue to provide our student athletes. Our Go for Life program, that's all off the field education in so many areas of life. The COVID-19, the pandemic of what we're going through, and educating kids through all this. And then, by the way, there's this game of football over here. So I think they're combined. I never look at myself. I recently have changed the way I talk to myself about the head coach, and I'm a member of the team like everybody else. I'm an educator like everybody else. The only difference from me and everyone else is I make the final decision. That's it. So I think the sixth grade education teacher blended with the love of football has made me exactly who I am today. And I don't think that'll ever change. And I don't think that should ever be separated, because coaches are teachers. We're educators first. Period. And it doesn't matter what play you call. If you don't have the best people on that field who believe in that play, who believe in each other, who love each other, who are connected as a team, the play's not going to work, no matter how much it works on that chalkboard. So we spend a lot of time pouring into our players, and no program's perfect. We're not perfect, but that's where we strive to be.
You mentioned not being perfect. And yet you could argue one thing you've created that was perfect was row the boat. And everyone knows the story by now, how that phrase started when you lost your son and you used it as a life approach. But PJ, that thing has worked. I mean, it not only has worked in terms of results, but in terms of the men you've been able to raise and the fans that adapt it and have used that as parts of their life. Was there anything, we talk about the touchdown songs you tried that failed.
They worked. We still kept it. We played Chelsea Dagger a lot in year 3 and year 4 at Western Michigan. I promise you that.
Was there any, I don't want to call it a catchphrase because that diminishes what it is, but was there any phrase, anything you tried before Row the Boat that just didn't click in the right way?
No, because that's what I really wanted to be able to bring forth. And I think that there was doubt after year 1. Maybe this row the boat thing, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't bring something so personal. I shouldn't bring something that's making me kind of just like everybody else, not their head coach, but just like everybody else. Maybe college football's not ready for that connection. Maybe we're not ready for a slogan that's really directly tied to charity to be a slogan for the team. But that's not what it was invented for. It was brought here to be able to have people have something to relate to their college football head coach about, to say, hey, I've been through that, whether that's divorce, whether that's mental health, whether that's losing a child or losing a loved one, that we all have to row through life, that we all have to find a way to be able to be better today than we were yesterday. And we all have the choices of what we want to become on the daily basis. But beforehand, no. But after year 1, yes. There were so many people that asked me, like, okay, row the boat didn't work. What are you going to do now? Idiot. And there was a time where I said, I'm not going to do it. I was divorced. My personal life wasn't very good. And obviously professionally, I'm 1-11. I'm the worst coach in America. And this row the boat thing that I invented and brought forth to be so positive didn't work. And my wife, Heather, who I met at the time, I remember telling her that I'm gonna pull back on this row the boat thing. And basically it was over my dead body you are. This is what it's for. This is why you are here. This is why you came here. This is who you are as a person. This is going to be your lifelong legacy one day. They might not look at it not like it now, but one day it will be. And if it wasn't for her saying that, I probably would have got rid of it. And she was my girlfriend at the time. And so I was like, okay, well, she's pretty smart. Maybe one day I'll marry her and we'll do this thing together. And that's what we've done. And she's taken over a lot of the foundation, a lot of the fund, a lot of the charity work with it, and has really expanded it into what it is. But again, it's really powerful. And I hope everybody understands it, because it's easy to mock. It's easy to do all those things. But and that's part of college football. That's the fun of it, make fun of other people's things. But everyone in our world can use it. They can adapt to it. But there wasn't any talk prior to it. But after it, there was some doubts. But that's what it's for. It's for those really difficult times, including what we're going through right now in our country.
Did we have any adjective before elite that didn't work? Because elite, listen, I'm a journalist. I like words. There's a lot of adjectives out there, but you've hooked onto one of them.
Yeah, I'm huge in the military. I'm huge into Navy SEALs and Green Berets and Army Rangers and Delta Force. I'm huge into learning about those guys. And there was one part of my life that I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And I think in my living vicarious through guys that I've had different speakers of friends that I've had that are out west or live in San Diego that are former Navy SEALs. The word elite always came up. When I heard speakers talk to our football team at Rutgers or Northern Illinois or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was this word elite, elite, elite. And I always wrote it down in my notebook, like, all right, when I get my head football job one day, if I ever am lucky enough to get that, we're going to think at a different level. Because if we can think at a different level, we'll play at a different level. And I thought I'll be a young head coach. I'm not just going to be handed Alabama. Oh yeah, here's USC, here's Texas. I knew the jobs that I was going to have an opportunity if I wanted to at a young age were going to be very difficult jobs. And we were going to have to be able to change people's thoughts, perceptions, and ideas, and to get them to think outside the box, change the way they talk about their university, change the way they talk about their program, not only just boosters, but alumni, the community, the people at the university, our players that were on the team, people we bring in, staff. And that's where elite kind of stuck because it's unique. When people ask you how you doing elite, they do a double take, like, because the normal response is I'm doing good, but I want people to say, you're doing elite. What does that mean? Oh, funny you should ask. Here you go. And then, boom, you rattle off 15 minutes of talk. Then they're more confused than they were when they asked you how you're doing.
When you said you like, how serious were you at thinking about becoming a Navy SEAL? When was this in your life?
Oh, this is, when Top Gun was out. I think every kid wanted to be Tom Cruise. I don't think anybody wanted to be Goose. But we all wanted to be Tom Cruise. We all wanted to be Maverick. And I remember I wasn't a very big guy. My dad's 5'4", not a very big guy. And I knew that I could fit in a fighter jet. And we didn't grow up with much money. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to pay for my college education, or my parents weren't going to be able to do that. So the military always crossed my mind. And I thought, wow, how fun would it be to be an Air Force pilot? Not only that, maybe, Navy SEALs can do it all. They can do it in the air. They can do it in the sea, and they can do it on land. They're elite of the elite. No circumstance dictates their behavior. They can go anywhere. And so I think that's where that came from. The love for the military, the love for the discipline in the military, the teamwork in the military, all fighting for something bigger than ourselves. And I think that's where that came from. And I guess we got to thank Top Gun for that, for all of us during my generation. And I think I was Maverick. I was Jim McMahon like 4 years in a row for Halloween. And I think I was Maverick like 2 years in a row.
Well, by the way, if I may, real quick, Goose got Meg Ryan. Okay, Goose is, some people were perfectly fine with Goose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just what happens to Goose. No, that's not good. No, we all talk about sacrificing, for our country now, but that was just harsh. Even to this day, while I'm watching Top Gun, I got to fast forward through that part. It's just, when you have children, death changes everything.
Yeah.
Like changes the way you thought about death, the movies you watch, the things you could, the 60 Minutes, the Dateline, you can't watch those things anymore. When you have children, it changes your entire life. I know that.
Oh man, when my 4-year-old, we let him watch Lion King, and when the father dies, and my kid's going like, "Daddy, why is he napping?" And I was like,
uh-oh. And then when your wife sits there and tells you, "Hey, Mike, that one's yours," you got to hurry up and think what you're going to say, because somehow, some way, kids always remember what you said when they were 2.
Oh, totally.
And it comes at a different time, when they're 12 and they say, "Hey, remember when you told me this when I was 3? You're like, "What?"
All right, I know you're short on time, so I'm going to get to our final segment. Before we go, it's called Before You Go. There's 4 questions that are unrelated to each other. Here's the first one. Give me the best sporting event you've ever been to, purely as a fan, not as a player or as a coach.
Oh, hands down, Kentucky Derby. Hands down. Nothing like it.
How many?
What?
How many have you been to?
1.
Yeah.
Heather and I pick a sporting event we've never been to every single year, and we do it. We just go. And this year was supposed to be the Masters, which we didn't get a chance to go to, but we do that. And by far the greatest sporting event I've ever been to has been the Kentucky Derby. It was special. And, you know, when we go to a sporting event, we're going to do it right now. I mean, we're going to do it first class. We're going to make sure we live it up. And we definitely did. Brought a lot of friends of ours. It was a very unique time and elite event and a lot of fun.
That's a great idea. One sporting event a year. I mean, what a great bucket list way to fly through.
And bringing your wife to the Kentucky Derby is an easy sell.
Yeah.
Because she gets to go shopping for days and days and days. We had hats arriving at our house every day for like 3 weeks. And I did tell her, I said, no, listen, we're going to the Oaks and we're going to the Derby. There's 2 days of this thing. So you have 2 hats. And she's like, yeah, but I don't know what it's going to be like. Depends what the weather's going to be like. You know, what hat goes with what I decide to wear. And I'm like, geez. So it was a no-brainer for her to come with once she knew that she was going to be able to shop and the hats. And that's the easiest sell for a wife to come.
All right, number 2. I know you're a healthy guy and you're in a place where you have to be healthy, but we're all human. Give me your go-to non-healthy snack food.
Oh, Snicker bars.
There you go.
For sure. I mean, I could live off Snicker bars.
Listen, there's a lot of nutrients in there. I'm with you. You could eat only that for a day and be fine.
And you know what? I guess it's, you know, it's packed with peanuts, they say, right? So that's high in protein is what the, you know, the sell for the health food part is on Snickers. But I would say definitely Snickers.
Number 3, your favorite band or favorite singer?
Oh my gosh. Well, John Legend's nephew plays for us, Michael Brown Stevens. So I'm going to have to go with John Legend for my wife. That is her ultimate favorite. All right. I would probably say for me, I'm a huge Jason Aldean fan, huge country music fan. And I will also give you one more too, because I'm going to go back a little bit, right? I'm a huge Jimmy Buffett guy and I'm a huge Billy Joel guy. So I'm very eclectic in my music. I range from all types of things. Saw the Eagles last summer. It was tremendous. So I can do a lot of things. I can listen to a lot of music.
One of my favorite songs that like never got famous is a John Legend song called "It Don't Have to Change." It is from like 15 years ago. It is every time I listen to it, I'm like, I don't know how this isn't one of the most popular songs of the last couple decades. It's so great. Heather's got good taste. She's got good taste.
She definitely does. I mean, yeah, she does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, Mike. Last one. How many pets?
I mean, come on. John Legend and me. I mean, it's
very
a striking resemblance.
Right. Last one.
Put it this way. The first gift I ever got her when we got to Minnesota was a first row seat middle to John Legend right here at the University of Minnesota's campus. That was the first thing I ever bought her when I got her. I said, okay, well, she just moved from her home state to here. I better do something good. And John Legend was coming, and that was it.
Right.
And she said, I felt like he was singing just to me.
He was.
And that's what I told him. He was.
She saw those tickets and she was like, Sky Yuma.
Yeah. And then I figured out, I Googled, hey, who's John Legend's nephew? Does he have anybody in football? Oh, there he is. I'm going to offer that guy. No, I'm kidding. No. Michael's a very good player, and we got a bright future with that young man.
Last one. How many pets have you had in your life, and can you name their names?
Yeah, we never had any dogs growing up. My sister was allergic, so we didn't have many pets. My dad would bring home stray dogs because my dad's got a huge heart. My dad is a person that would have picked up hitchhikers back in the day and just take them where they want to go. He'd see a random dog in a parking lot, bring it home for a week, and then find its owner. But I never really had. I had a pet in college, a dog, a Siberian Husky Malamute mix, and her name was Nayu, like N-I-U. Nayu, and it sounded Alaskan. And had her for a few years, and I had to give her away because a college kid with a dog didn't work. I then had a dog, a bull mastiff named Merle, and then Merle bit someone, so we got rid of Merle. I got rid of Merle, and then Bruce was another bull mastiff. Then Bruce died of cancer, and then now we have little Bella. Bella's 4 pounds. She's a full-grown multi-poo, and I think Heather loves Bella more than she loves me. So,
well, if I may bring this around again, she's got good taste. PJ, thanks so much for your time, man. This was an awful lot of fun. Tell Josh Donaldson we said, hey, what's up, and we'll talk soon.
Will do. Sounds good. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers. Thanks for having us.
So to recap, PJ shaved his head because his wife asked him to. He writes a letter to his kids every day. How interesting is that? And if you see him on the streets, give him a Snickers. My thanks to PJ Fleck for joining me. Heads up, our pal Alex Rue recently had Charlotte Wilder from Fox Sports on his Take 10 podcast. Be sure to check that out. But that'll do it for this episode. From the Big Ten Network in Chicago, I'm Mike Hall. We'll see you next week.